My name is Eleanor. I'm 32 now, but this story doesn't start here. It starts when I was 8, and I learned what it meant to be invisible. Matthew, my older brother, pushed me down the stairs. I remember the snap in my wrist, the burn of a carpet on my skin. I remember the tears in his eyes when our parents came running. I didn't mean to, he said, and they hugged him. Me, I got grounded. They said I must have provoked him, that I was too dramatic. That was the moment I learned in my family truth didn't matter as much as who they wanted to believe. Have you ever been the one who got blamed just for existing, the one who stayed quiet while others were praised? If you felt that, if any part of this sounds like your childhood, you're not alone. You can leave a comment, even just, I understand. Sometimes knowing someone else sees you is enough. This is my story, not to complain, but to remember, and maybe to help you remember too. Matthew was 10, 2 years older, taller, louder. Everyone said he had charm. He got away with everything. Skipping school, taking money from dad's wallet, yelling at mom. They called it just being a boy, said he'd grow out of it. When I cried, they told me I was being dramatic. When I spoke up, I was the problem. You make the house tense, mom once whispered. I remember that word tense. Like I was a crack in the glass they were trying to ignore. So I stopped talking. Not all at once, just little by little. One silence at a time. Have you ever felt like you had to shrink just to keep the peace? If you have, I'm with you. Feel free to share only if you want to. Even just a word, it matters more than you think. By 13, I had mastered the art of disappearing. My bedroom became a shelter. Door locked, headphones in, homework was my escape. Matthew came in whenever he wanted, took what he liked, laughed at the rest. No one stopped him. Sometimes I left notes on my door. Please knock. They never worked. I didn't cry anymore. Crying got me scolded. Crying made me difficult. On my birthday, I got a gift card and a hug that felt more like a handshake. Matthew got balloons, cake noise. Each year, I felt myself fading, like a photo left in the sun. Less seen, less wanted. Have you ever felt like the background in your own home? Like love had a list, and you weren't on it? You're not forgotten. You never were. Drop a heart if this feels familiar. Let's be seen together. I was 17 when I packed my life into 2 bags. No plan, no goodbye. Just quiet steps out the door and silence behind me. No one called. No one asked where I went. It was like they'd been waiting for me to disappear. At first it felt like floating. No rules, no shouting, no guilt. But freedom doesn't always feel like flying. Sometimes it just feels like falling slowly. I slept on couches, took any job I could find, learned how to live with little. Less food, less comfort, less hope. But I kept going because at least the hurt was mine now, not handed to me by the people who were supposed to love me. Have you ever walked away from everything and still felt like you lost nothing? If that moment found you to, you're not alone. Leave a word below. Let someone know you made it out. Years passed, quiet ones. I worked nights at a hotel, folding towels, changing sheets, smiling for tips. Then one day it ended. No warning. Just an email, a final paycheck that barely covered a week's rent. My roommate left. Back to her parents' warm house and full fridge. I didn't have that option. I sold what I could, donated the rest, used my last savings to buy an old camper shell for the back of my truck. It smelled like damp cardboard, leaked when it rained. But it locked, and for the first time in years it was mine. I called home once, asked if I could park in their driveway. Mom hesitated, said they were too full. Matthew and Lily had moved in. Have you ever asked for help and heard the door close before the sentence ended? It stings. If you know that sting, I see you. The next day I got a text, not from my mom, from Lily, Matthew's wife. Hope the truck bed's cozy. That was all she said. No greeting, no warmth, just a smirk and words. So I found a grocery store lot that didn't tow. Parked under a flickering light, slept with one eye open. Dinner became cold noodles and crackers from a cooler. Showers came from a 24-hour gym. Electricity. A stolen cord from a church outlet when no one was watching. It wasn't a life, but it was what I had. And slowly, I got used to the silence, not the kind that hurts, but the kind that holds you when no one else does. Have you ever made peace with loneliness, turned it into a shelter? If so, you already know strength others never will. That camper, the one they laughed at, became the first thing I truly owned. It didn't ask questions, It didn't judge my past. It simply stayed. A friend of a friend told me about a job at a shipping warehouse 2 towns over. Boxes, forklifts, long shifts, nothing fancy, but no one cared where I slept. Ron, the manager, saw the camper on my truck. He didn't stare, didn't ask, just nodded once and handed me a clipboard. I parked near the back fence where no one looked twice. As long as I showed up and worked hard, I was enough. Have you ever found comfort in routine? In being useful, even if invisible. Sometimes stability doesn't look like success. It just looks like surviving. And surviving is its own kind of victory. I worked every hour they'd give me. Early mornings, late nights, weekends no one else wanted. I didn't have anywhere else to be. And work kept my thoughts from drifting. When winter came, the cold crept into my bones. Ron noticed. He let me run a heavy-duty cord from the warehouse to power a small heater. I offered to work Sundays for free. He just waved me off. But I showed up anyway. Little by little I saved. New tires, better insulation for the camper, a gym membership just for hot showers. On quiet weekends, I'd sit inside with a warm drink listening to the rain drum on the roof. And for the first time in years, I felt safe. Not because someone made it safe, but because I did. Ever built peace with your own hands? It's a feeling no one can take. Part 940. The quiet became mine. I kept my world small. No calls to family, no updates online, no trace of where I was. At first the silence felt heavy, like standing in a room with no windows. But over time, it began to feel like freedom. No one asking questions, no one telling me who to be. Just days and nights I could call my own. Months passed, slow, steady, silent. I worked, I rested, I built a rhythm no one could break. I stopped needing their approval, stopped wondering if they missed me. Have you ever gone so long without hearing your name that saying it out loud feels strange? That silence used to hurt me. Now it felt like air, like space I'd finally earned. If you've made peace with being unseen, you're not broken, you're healing. It happened after a long shift. I was walking back to my truck, feet sore, back tight, mind numb when I saw it. A flyer taped to the break room wall. Simple, faded. A small house for sale, close by, affordable. I almost walked past it. Almost told myself not for me, but my hand moved before my doubt could stop it. I took the number. The house wasn't much. 3 bedrooms, old siding, a porch light that flickered in the wind, but it had walls. A roof, plumbing, and most of all, it didn't move. I put nearly every dollar I had into the down payment. Then I sat in the parking lot of the loan office and cried. Not from sadness, from relief, from finally having something that couldn't be taken. Have you ever held a key and realized it opened more than just a door that day? I did. I didn't tell anyone, not at first. I just drove past the house each evening, watching it sit quiet under the porch light. It felt like it was waiting for me. Not rushing, not asking, just there. When I finally moved in, I had nothing but 2 blankets and a space heater. No bed, no table, just me, and silence that didn't feel heavy. I lay on the floor that night, wrapped tight, heater buzzing beside me, and I slept deep, still safe. The kind of sleep that tells your body you're finally allowed to rest. Have you ever closed your eyes somewhere new and realized you weren't afraid? That night, I didn't dream. I didn't need to, because I was already inside one. The next morning, I parked my truck in the back, took the camper shell off, wiped it clean, covered it with a tarp, and placed it near the fence like a quiet monument to everything I'd survived. I didn't want to throw it away. That camper had been my roof, my shelter, my proof. It reminded me of who I'd been and how far I'd come. A week later, on a quiet impulse, I posted a photo on Facebook. Just the porch light and house number. No face, no smile, just one line. Built this life from the back of a truck. I didn't expect replies. Maybe a like or two. Then the silence returned, and for once, I was okay with that. Have you ever shared a piece of your story not for attention, just to say I made it? That's all I needed, just that one small echo. 3 weeks later they came. Matthew, Lily, Mom and Dad, standing on my porch like it was some kind of reunion. No call, no warning. They never asked for the address. But somehow they found it. I opened the door stunned. They walked right in. No questions, no permission, like the house belonged to them. They wandered through the rooms like tourists in a model home. Lily whispered something to Matthew and laughed. Mom ran her fingers along the hallway wall. You've got a lot of space for just one person, she said with a smile. Dad stood in the kitchen, already looking like he was moving things around. Have you ever felt a chill while standing in your own home? That day, I felt like a guest in the place I had built alone. I didn't say much, just followed them from room to room, heart pounding, mouth dry. It felt like a slow invasion. Polite smiles hiding quiet plans. When they finally left, Matthew lingered at the door. Let's talk soon, he said. I've got something you'll want to hear. The next afternoon, he came back alone. Didn't knock, just tapped once, then walked right in like it was still his house. Like I was borrowing the space. He sat at my kitchen table, took a sip from his coffee, and smiled. This place makes sense for us, he began. Closer to my job, better schools. You've got extra rooms. Then he added almost casually, Lily's pregnant again. Have you ever heard a sentence that sounds like news, but lands like a demand I had? That was the moment. Matthew leaned back in the chair, still wearing that easy smile. We could really use the space, he said. You'd still live here, of course. He waved his hand like the plan was already approved. But we'd need the master for the baby. You could take the small room, or maybe just move back into the camper you were comfortable in there before, right? I didn't answer. Not yet. He kept going. We'd need some structure, obviously. Quiet hours. No guests unless cleared with us. Groceries would be split, but Lily cooks, so that's a win for you? That was when something in me pulled tight. Not anger, not drama, just a wire snapping after years of silence. I stood, palms flat on the table, voice steady. No, I said. Have you ever felt your spine straighten after being bent for too long? That's what it felt like. Matthew blinked, confused. What do you mean, no? His smile faltered. The room went quiet. You're not moving in, I said. You're not taking the master. You're not making rules in a house you didn't build. He stared at me like I was speaking a language he didn't understand. Be reasonable, Eleanor, he said, his voice turning sharp around the edges. I looked him in the eye, and for the first time, I didn't flinch. I was reasonable when Mom let you lie about breaking my wrist, when you borrowed my college fund for your business idea. I was reasonable when I lived behind a warehouse and no one even asked where I was. He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. This is my house. You don't get to take it. Have you ever heard your own voice and finally believed it? I did right then. It was a Thursday afternoon when I pulled into the driveway and something felt off. The welcome mat was crooked. The porch light was on, and I never left it on during the day. The living room blinds, normally closed, were wide open. I reached for my keys, slipped one into the lock. It didn't fit. Tried again slower this time. Still nothing. My hands started to shake. I walked around the side of the house. Matthew's truck was parked at the curb. Tailgate down, boxes inside. Through the window, I saw Lily stacking things in my hallway like she'd lived there for years. Matthew walked by carrying one of my blankets. They weren't planning to move in. They already had. Have you ever felt your lungs tighten, not from fear, but from betrayal? That moment stole my breath, but not my voice. I knocked hard. Once. Twice. Lily turned, smirked. Matthew came to the door, calm as ever. What are you doing here? He asked. Like I was the intruder. This is my house, I said, my voice cold steady. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. Worn edges, coffee stains. You signed this, he said. Rental agreement. You said we could stay for a while. I stared at it. At the signature scrawled at the bottom. It was my name, but not my handwriting. You forged that, I said. Lily stepped up beside him, arms crossed, belly showing. Don't be dramatic, Eleanor. You left the door open. We just made it official. Have you ever watched someone lie to your face and smile while doing it? I had. But this time I pressed record. I held up my phone camera, pointed straight at them. You're trespassing, I said, and you broke my lock. Matthew stepped forward, tried to block the lens, but I kept filming. Hand steady, voice calm. Lily slapped the phone from my hand. It hit the floor hard. Still recording. I picked it up and dialed. The police arrived within 10 minutes. I showed them everything, the deed, the text messages, even the Facebook post with the house number and date. Matthew stammered. Held up the fake lease again. Lily yelled at the officers, accused me of abandoning the property. It didn't work. They were ordered to leave. Now. I stood silent as they carried their boxes back to the truck, Lily muttering under her breath. Have you ever seen justice arrive not with fury, but with quiet, steady steps? That day I did. When the door closed behind them, the air inside still felt warm, like their presence hadn't fully left, like the walls remembered. I locked it twice, then stood in the hallway, heart racing, as if the house itself needed to be reminded you belong to me. I didn't speak, didn't cry, just breathed, slow and deep. That night, I posted the video. No caption, just the clip of Matthew holding the forged lease lily, slapping the phone, and my voice clear, steady, calm. At first I thought no one would care, but the comments came. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years, old coworkers. Aunt Grace from California messaged, "Now it all makes sense. Have you ever spoken the truth and watched it echo into places you thought were closed forever?" That silence after posting it wasn't lonely, it was mine. After the video, everything went quiet on their side. No more Sunday brunch photos, no cheerful group selfies, just nothing. Lily vanished from social media. Matthew stopped posting entirely. My parents didn't say a word, but the silence said enough. At work, people came up quietly. "Good for you." That took guts. They didn't ask for details, just nodded like they understood. It wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. About saying this happened and not being ashamed anymore. One evening, my parents showed up at my door. No call, no warning. Again. Mom looked tired. Dad looked older. "Julian's going through a hard time," she said. "You've made your point. Can't you let it go for the family?" Have you ever been asked to stay silent just to keep others comfortable? This time, I didn't. I looked at them, really looked. For years, I had waited for this moment. An apology, a reason, anything. But they didn't come to make it right. They came to make it quiet. "I am doing this for the family," I said, the part that never tried to steal from me. They stood there speechless, no anger, no denial, just silence, like they finally realized they had no power here anymore. Just then, a car pulled into the driveway. Grace stepped out. My cousin, the only one who had ever believed me without proof. She walked up and stood beside me. Said nothing. Didn't need to. That was the last time my parents tried to guilt me. Have you ever felt someone stand next to you and suddenly the weight you've carried didn't feel so heavy? That was Grace. And that was enough. A week passed, then Matthew texted me. No apology, no mention of the break-in, just, "Hey, can we talk? It's about the kids and rent." I agreed to meet him in the driveway. No more letting him walk into my space. He showed up alone. Hands in his pockets, eyes everywhere but on me. He didn't look smug this time, just tired, worn down. "Lily's not working," he said. "Formula diapers, it's a lot. We've just fallen behind." He didn't ask to move in again. Not this time. Just for money. Even a few $100 a month would help, he added. Have you ever watched someone tiptoe around a favor like the shame was louder than the words, "That was Matthew"? But I stayed quiet, waiting. I didn't raise my voice, didn't get angry. I just opened my laptop and showed him the numbers. Property tax, insurance, repairs. I'd already done groceries, utilities, every line. Clear, honest, real. Then I showed him a list, names, dates, payments. 2 women from work had already signed to rent the basement studio. Quiet, respectful, always on time, I said. I looked him in the eye. "I don't have money to spare. I didn't buy this house to become a bank for someone who tried to take it from me." He nodded. Lips tight. No fight this time, just turned and walked back to his truck. Have you ever stood your ground so firmly? You didn't need to explain twice. That was all I needed. Once. Clear. Enough. A few days later, Lily drove by. She didn't stop, just slowed. Near the house, rolled down the window and screamed, "You're a thief, a traitor, a cold, barren witch." Her words cut sharp, but they didn't land. I was at the kitchen sink, watching through the curtain. Hands still, face calm. I didn't flinch. Didn't step outside, didn't give her anything to feed off. She drove off, tires screeching at the corner. That same afternoon, my tenants arrived, 2 women with quiet smiles and arms full of grocery bags. One baked bread and brought me a warm loaf. The other watered the lawn before work each morning. The house felt different now. Lived in. Peaceful. Have you ever felt chaos leave and calm finally take its place? That evening, I let the quiet stay. That night, I walked out to the backyard, pulled back the tarp on the camper, let the air flow through. I didn't know why, I just felt like it was time, like something was shifting again. The camper smelled the same, dust, wood, a faint trace of rain from long ago. I ran my hand along the side, remembered the cold nights, the hunger, the small victories, the quiet strength it gave me when no one else would. I wasn't preparing it for myself. I didn't need it anymore, but something told me someone else might. I left the tarp folded on the fence, let the night breeze pass through the door. Have you ever touched an old part of your life and felt nothing but peace, not pain, not shame, just peace? That's how I knew I'd healed. The whispers started small, a message here, a screenshot there, people who knew someone who knew Lily. Rumors turned into threads. Threads turned into facts. She'd been seeing someone else, not recently, for most of her marriage. At first, Matthew denied it, said people were stirring trouble, but the timelines didn't match, and the baby didn't look like him. A paternity test ended the guessing. The youngest wasn't his. When the results came, something in Matthew cracked. Not loud, not angry, just hollow. Lily didn't take it well. She screamed, threw things, lashed out in front of the kids. Someone called the police. They found her outside, barefoot, yelling into the night. Have you ever watched a storm you didn't cause finally destroy itself? I didn't step in. I didn't have to. The divorce moved fast. No court battles, no begging, just papers signed and silence. Lily disappeared. Someone said Arizona. No one knew for sure. She didn't take the kids. Matthew moved back in with our parents. The house that once pushed me out now held him, barely speaking, barely moving. My parents stopped showing their faces at church. No more bragging, no more stories of how well the family's doing, just absence. I didn't gloat, didn't smile at their downfall. There was nothing sweet in any of it. One evening, I sat on my porch with a warm drink. Not happy, not angry, just still. Have you ever reached the end of a storm and realized you didn't need sunshine, just the quiet, just being done? A few days later, Matthew came back. Not to the door, not inside. He stood at the bottom of the porch steps. Hands in his pockets, eyes low, shoulders heavy. I opened the door. Didn't invite him in. He didn't ask. I'm not here to ask for the house, he said. I know better. I waited. It's for Lucas, he added. He's not sleeping well at Mom and Dad's. Too much noise. Too many people. He asked if we could live somewhere quieter. He misses having space. I looked past Matthew to where the camper sat, clean, quiet, untouched. I remembered every night in that shell. The cold, the fear, the way it held me when no one else would. Have you ever stood in the present and felt the past breathe behind you? I had. And this time I didn't turn away. I'm not giving it to you, I said. Matthew didn't argue, didn't plead, just nodded once. I'm not asking you to. I stepped off the porch, led him to the backyard. The camper sat beneath the tree, familiar but no longer mine. You can stay here, I said, behind the house. But there will be rules. No loud visitors, no Lily, no overnight guests unless I meet them face to face. I wrote everything down, made him sign it. We shook hands. I recorded the moment. He said nothing more, just whispered, "Thank you, really." I handed him the spare keys and walked back inside. Have you ever given something not out of kindness, but out of clarity? That night he moved in, and by morning I heard the soft sound of a soccer ball in the grass. It was late. The kids had been asleep for hours. The house was quiet, still. Then I heard a sound, soft and even, not footsteps, not voices, just something breaking gently. I stepped outside, expecting to find a spill, maybe a broken shelf. Instead, I saw Matthew sitting on the camper floor, back against the wall, hands covering his face, shoulders shaking. He didn't look up. I ruined everything, he whispered. I let her ruin us, and I let them ruin you. I didn't speak, didn't move closer, just stood there, letting the silence stretch like a bridge between us. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said. I just wanted you to know. I see it now, all of it. Have you ever heard the truth spoken too late but still needed to be said? That night, I let him sit with it, alone. The days moved slowly after that. Not heavy, just still. The kids stayed close. Lucas and his little brother drew chalk pictures on the driveway, watered the garden without being asked, Brought me flowers, tiny wild, picked from weeds. They didn't ask questions, didn't mention the past. They just stayed near, as if their presence was their way of saying sorry for things they didn't cause. I let them. One afternoon, Lucas handed me a folded paper heart. No words, just a simple shape pressed into my palm. Have you ever felt a wound soften, not from an apology, but from the quiet kindness of someone who didn't owe you anything? That's what they gave me. Not repair, but peace. One Sunday afternoon, my parents showed up again. No lecture, no defense, just tired eyes and hands that didn't quite know where to rest. They stood on the porch looking smaller than I remembered. Mom spoke first. "We were wrong," she said. "You didn't deserve it. No stories, no shifting blame, just that." For once, they didn't ask for anything in return. Not a hug, not an answer, not forgiveness. And I didn't offer any, not because I was angry, but because I was calm. Have you ever seen someone finally carry the weight you've been holding for years? That day, they didn't come to be seen as right. They came to admit they'd been wrong, and that was enough for me. After they left, I sat by the window for a long time, watching the light fade across the porch steps they used to ignore. No tears, no shaking hands, just stillness. Later that evening, I made a copy of my house key, slipped it into a plain envelope, no note. The next morning, I gave it to Grace. She didn't ask why, just held it gently like it meant more than it looked. And maybe it did. Not just a key, but a quiet thank you for showing up when no one else did. Have you ever opened a door for someone who never asked but always stood beside you? That's what Grace was. Not loud, not demanding, just present. And that was the kind of family I chose to keep. A week later, another text from Matthew. Simple. Too simple. "Hey, can we talk? It's about the kids." And rent. This time, I didn't feel dread, didn't feel anger either, just ready. We met outside by the driveway, same place as before. He came alone, hands in his jacket, eyes tired, voice soft. "They're growing fast," he said. "Formula's expensive. We've just fallen behind. Even a little help would make a difference." But this time he didn't lean in, didn't assume, didn't act like he was owed. Have you ever watched someone ask, not with pride, but with the quiet ache of someone trying to be better? I listened. Then I answered not with emotion, but with facts. I opened my binder not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Showed him the spreadsheet: taxes, insurance, repairs, grocery bills, maintenance costs. Every dollar had a place. Every line had meaning. Nothing extra, nothing left to give. Then I pointed to the bottom, a list of current tenants, both women, reliable, already helping cover what I couldn't alone. "I'm not sitting on spare money," I said. "I'm not holding back." Matthew didn't argue, didn't beg. He just nodded the way people do when they already knew the answer before asking. Have you ever explained something not for defense, but so there'd be no room for misunderstanding? That day I wasn't cruel. I was clear, and that was enough. A few days passed. Then Lily came by. She didn't get out of the car, just rolled down the window and shouted from the street, "You're heartless, a thief, a cold, barren witch." The same words as before, only louder, angrier, like saying them louder might make them true. I stood at the kitchen sink, watching through the curtain, hands still, face calm. I didn't move, didn't answer, didn't give her what she came for. She sped off. The sound of tires peeling away was the last thing she ever gave me. Later that afternoon, my tenants came home. One brought cookies, the other waved as she watered the lawn. Have you ever known that you didn't need the last word because your life already said enough? That moment told me peace wins quietly, always. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt lived in, still, safe. The tenants filled the space but never the silence. One baked without being asked. The other left flowers in a glass jar on the windowsill. There was no tension, no pretending, just simple, quiet living, the kind I used to think didn't exist. Lucas played in the yard every afternoon. Chalk drawings stretched across the driveway. Small shoes sat neatly by the door of the camper. No one had to say it, but something had changed. Not everything was fixed, not every wound gone, but the air felt different now, like the house had finally let go of all the noise it never asked to hold. Have you ever walked through your home and felt like it finally exhaled? That's what it was. Full, but peaceful. The rumors didn't stop, they grew. Little by little, like cracks in glass, someone sent me a screenshot. Lily. Messages with another man dated months, even years back. It wasn't recent, it was constant. Matthew tried not to believe it. He held on until the truth wouldn't let him. The baby, the one he made room for, wasn't his. A paternity test ended the guessing, and when the truth landed, everything broke. Lily screamed, threw plates, shouted at him in front of the kids. Their oldest tried to step between them. She turned on him too. Someone called the police. They found her outside barefoot yelling at the sky. Have you ever seen truth arrive late? But just in time. That night, Matthew was left holding his son's hand in the driveway. I didn't reach out, didn't gloat, didn't say I told you so. I didn't need to. Lily left town, no goodbye, no custody fight, just vanished. Matthew moved back in with our parents, the same house that once turned its back on me. I heard he barely spoke, stopped showing up at church. My parents didn't make excuses this time. They had none left. One evening, Matthew stood at the porch steps again, not to ask, just to say thank you for not letting us ruin you. I didn't answer, just nodded. Behind me, Lucas watered the garden. His little brother drew sun on the driveway. Laughter, soft, easy, floated in the air. Have you ever stood in the life they said you'd never build and realized you didn't just survive, you became your own home, and no one can take that from you?